It's time for Healing Utah, a program dedicated to helping Utahns heal from addictions to drugs, alcohol, pornography, and other addictions. Your host is Abby Bonnell, along with the co-founder and CEO of Utah Addiction Centers, Jeremy Boberg.
Jeremy, it's great to have you back on the program again. And Candice Christiansen, too, CMHC, CSAT supervisor and owner of Namaste, which is the Center of Healing here in town. Really, your expertise is going to be invaluable today. We're looking at addictions, but specifically pornography. Some will say, well, it's not really a problem. And your response to that, Jeremy?
We see it as absolutely not only a problem, but an epidemic, not only here in the state, but worldwide. From a multifaceted approach, we see it affecting the individual, loved ones, partners, children. It's epidemic.
Candice, how do you tackle this? I mean, really, as you say, it's available to everyone. And here's the thing, it's available even to children now, really young kids.
Absolutely. You know, I've had 13-year-olds come into my office saying that they were exposed when they were in second grade, that another student showed them pornography on their phone. And so, you know, how do we tackle it? We've got to start young, but we also have, I mean, Jeremy and I see this all the time. We have adults coming to us saying they started young, right? And so this is a generational issue now because of the access.
So how do you go about tackling this? If somebody is listening right now and they have a loved one specifically who's viewing pornography and it's really interrupting clearly their lives, their intimacy, all of the above, how do you start to begin to help them and say, listen, there's help here. You have at Utah Addiction Centers, you're very experienced in this particular field. Yeah,
the problem that we see oftentimes is that the family or loved ones are the ones who actually find out that the problem. That's the part and it can be traumatizing to them. On some rare occasions, the person who is viewing the pornography or addicted to the pornography will come and ask for help. That does happen. But the majority of the time, they're caught. And how do you approach that? That's a great question. How do you help a person who's right now in the middle of dealing with trauma and being traumatized by realizing that their husband is being unfaithful or that their child is looking at very deviant pornography? And the correct answer is at this point, this is where you probably ought to get a professional who knows what they're doing, who knows how to be able to communicate and get, not only a professional, but, ecclesiastical leaders, friends, other people who've been through this as a support system, because this is treated through a multidimensional or multifunctional approach.
Candice, a lot of people would probably not want to talk about it. It's the shame, the stigma, all of
absolutely.
It. They start to lie, cover it up. Mm-hmm. It's becoming an issue. It's at work. It's costing the employer money too. Mm-hmm. People are missing work. All kinds of. You see this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people that are driving. They'll be driving while they're looking at pornography. People that masturbate to injury. I mean, this is serious stuff. So. Yeah, I mean, it truly is. When we talk about it, I do like to talk about it as an epidemic because it really is. I mean, this isn't your the paper porn. We're not talking about paper porn anymore. We're talking about violent, aggressive porn nowadays. That kids are accidentally exposed to. The average age that they're exposed is 11. And, they're getting addicted and then they're replicating it. And we have adults that actually will see that. They'll see, images of, violence and aggression, especially towards women, and then they'll replicate it, and so we're having to treat that as well. I mean, people will end up moving into higher risk pornography, child pornography at times, or end up in the criminal justice system because of it. So, we're not talking about, like I said, Playboy, if I can say that. We're talking about hardcore pornography now that children and youth are getting exposed to. And so we do have to treat it at all levels. I mean, it really is generational at this point.
So when you have somebody who comes in and finally realizes that they need help, you make this clearly a family affair, because if they're in a relationship, that other person is being impacted extremely.
Absolutely. And so we do treat the partners. Research shows that partners come in and they have symptoms of post-traumatic stress. I mean, there's a huge betrayal that goes on because no one can compete with pornography. No one can compete with it. I mean, it's not real. It's not real. So we absolutely treat the partners, we treat the addict, we treat the family. If we have the kids are impacted, especially if they're old enough to understand, sometimes the children won't be, but you'll have teenagers that start looking themselves because they found dad's porn. In some cases, they found mom's porn. I mean, it does go both ways. And so we absolutely have to treat addict, partner, family, the whole system.
Jeremy, at the Utah Addiction Centers, share with us some of the experiences you've had with patients coming in and really the outcomes.
When I first got into the business of doing clinical therapy and treatment, it was based on a substance abuse foundation. And the more I treated my clients, the more I realized that there was a predominating effect of almost all of them had relationship or sexual addiction problems. That's when I went to get more extensive training in sex addiction training and therapy. And I realized that the sex addiction is oftentimes the foundation to the substance abuse. And so a lot of my clients that come in for substance abuse treatment also need to be treated for sex addiction or relationship attachment disorders, other behavioral addictions as well. There's what we call cross-addictive behavioral traits. And so to treat one, you have to treat all of them. And the underlying core of what is it that I'm self-medicating.
So you have residential treatment programs, and I know that, Candice, you have outpatient, both of you, kind of covering it all, really. Very easy. Somebody just has to really pick up the phone, don't they, and give you a call. The hotline, by the way, at the Utah Addiction Center is 801-766-2233. Again, if somebody thinks that they have a problem, first step, admit it, pick up the phone, and seek help.
Absolutely. Well, once again, if you're an individual who is struggling, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about after viewing the pornography or having that experience, the shame and despair that comes with it afterwards. If that's something that is part of your life, I can guarantee you need help. It's time to call a therapist. It's time to call Utah Addiction Centers or Namaste Center for Healing to get help. This is where it begins. You tried it. I'm talking specifically to that listener out there. You've tried it over and over on your own. You've made promises to yourself. You've made promises to God, and you've made goals, and you continue to habitually go back to the same behavior. That's the person I'm talking to right now. You need help, and you're not going to be able to do it on your own.
Candice, at Namaste Healing Center, have you just seen such an increase in this field of people seeking help?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we get on average one call a day for referral to come into our program. And, one day we had 7. It's like, and that was last week. I mean, it's like we're seeing, like I said, it's all ages at this point, so we have adults, but we also have parents calling because their daughters and sons are looking and acting out what they see. And so, yeah, I mean,
so it's promiscuity, really, at a young age, which is so dangerous.
Promiscuity or rape culture that's being, it's practicing rape culture. We just met with a school district last week who was describing, asking us to help them because they have teens who are, the girls are acting as though they are porn ready. And then you have boys that are assaultive. I mean, they're bullying in sexual ways at school. And the teachers are saying, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do because this is how, this is the norm. This is our culture now.
Well, it's criminal behavior.
It's absolutely criminal behavior. And so, one of the things that we do a lot of work on is prevention, right? So how can we teach youth social skills, and how can we teach them about consent, non-sexually and sexually, and how can we teach them about connection and compassion and humanizing the person that's in front of them so that they don't actually treat them like an object, because that's what we're seeing with porn, right? It's really objectifying and sexualizing objects.
Okay.
To add to that, if I can, Abby, it's important for the listeners out there, the parents, to learn how to communicate with their children.
And if they spot this problem, what should they be doing,
not
Jeremy?
only to spot it, but to be actively looking for it. Check the computers, a lot of parents are afraid to check their child's phone as an invasion of privacy. My response to them is tough. Get over it and get on as long as that child lives in your home, you have free access to that.
Okay, if they do discover it at one conversation, and if it continues to be repetitive, then you've got a problem.
Absolutely. And that conversation, oftentimes because it's traumatizing for the parent or the partner, remember, don't go into it as a trauma victim. Go into it as a loving, supportive, kind, compassionate, wow, we see there's a problem, let's talk about it, rather than shaming, because that's what they're self-medicating is shame. So we don't go into it and add fuel to the shame. We're going to do it we need to approach them in a loving, respectful way, but blunt, with boundaries, saying, we're not going to do this anymore. What's going on?
Okay, Namaste. Give me your phone number over there.
801-272-3500.
That's Candice Christiansen, also Jeremy Boberg with Utah Addiction Centers. That hotline, of course, at Utah Addiction Centers is 801-766-2233. We'll be back with more right here on Healing Utah.
Helping you deal with the addictions impacting your life or the lives of your loved ones. You're listening to Healing Utah on Utah's Talk Radio 105.9 KNRS.
We're back in studio with Jeremy Boberg and Candice Christiansen joining us from Namaste Center for Healing. We're talking about a very serious subject matter, pornography addiction, and both of you as therapists see this on a daily basis. You're working with incredibly young people, children now. Candice, how difficult is it when you get a child rather than an adult with this kind of addiction? How is it treating them?
Well, treating them is different than treating an adult, because a lot of times what happens is they don't have a person that they say, wow, I'm attracted to. They become aroused. Their brain actually forms around the image on the screen, right? And so that we have to work with them on changing their arousal template. But also we're looking at teaching them self-regulation. So how do you handle discomfort? How do you handle stress? With a teenager, a lot of teens accidentally get exposed. But what happens is they have this feeling inside, right? So they have that, it feels good to watch, and it's confusing, and there's shame. And so we're teaching them let's talk about how to regulate your discomfort and emotions. How do you connect with real people? We're teaching them how to socialize. We're teaching them about healthy boundaries. We're teaching them that what you're seeing on the screen is not real. That's not love. That's not how we're depicting true relationships. And so we're dealing with a lot, especially at the younger ages. A lot of adults come to us and we find out that they end up looking at porn because they're coping with some sort of shame, trauma, humiliation from childhood, so on and so forth. So with adults, again, it's a little bit different because it's not like they have accidental exposure and boom, they're hooked. Some, yes, but a lot of our adults that we see, we are healing past issues, past attachment issues, as Jeremy was saying, family of origin stuff, things like that, helping them find different ways to regulate and self-soothe so that they don't turn to porn, or it's similar to so they don't turn to alcohol or cocaine, right?
Right.
So.
Well, Jeremy, you're dealing with this clearly too over at Utah Addiction Centers, both youth and adults here. When is it a problem? First of all, if a parent realizes their child first and foremost is viewing or consuming this pornography, when does it become a problem? What do they do? How difficult is that first conversation? I can only imagine it would take your breath away if you realize what your kid was up to. Mm-hmm. And when do they need to call you at the Utah Addiction Centers?
It's a problem even before the child starts looking at the pornography, because eventually I can guarantee every child out there is going to be exposed to it at one point or another. So the problem already exists. It's having a loaded gun on the nightstand. Eventually a kid's going to come and look at it. And so the best time to approach it is early on, teaching healthy, appropriate computer skills and being attentive as a parent or a caregiver, being attentive to what's going on, having certain software blockers or accountability software on the system is the first step. Being able to talk about what's right, how we treat each other, a healthy modesty. what's appropriate, when it's appropriate to see others. Basic things that children's brains can handle and understand. This I think most parents are willing and able to do for the most part. It's when, as you were just asking in the question, when it becomes a problem, or when a parent or caregiver becomes aware of the problem, how do we handle it? And our first reaction is always shock, oftentimes shaming, telling the person that they're dirty, or that they're evil, or whatever. That just feeds the shame, as we discussed earlier.
It's not helpful.
Not helpful at all. It's, wow, it looks like you've got some curiosity. Can we talk about it? I'd like to ask you a few questions, and then just start the conversation. It's uncomfortable for the individual, for the child, or for the partner. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for the parent first time, and you've got to have that conversation. You have to find comfort in that discomfort. You've got to start asking questions, and as you ask questions and you start a conversation and in a safe way, they're not going to divulge everything secret right then and there, but it's going to start the ball rolling. You check the histories, you check the servers, you check and see what they do know, what they are seeing. And then when a parent, caregiver, a spouse, partner, when they get to a point where they feel stuck, or if they feel that this is bigger than me, or if their gut tells them, wow, this is problematic, I don't know what to do from here.
It's a cycle. It's being repeated.
Right, and that's the time when you call a therapist.
Okay. Utah Addiction Centers are specialists in this field. You can give them a call on their hotline at 801-766-2233. In terms of residential, also outpatient too, Candice is over at Namaste Center of Healing. Budgets, affordable, health plans, you take it all?
We do, yeah. As far as the Utah Addiction Centers, we accept most insurance. Now, understand, insurance doesn't pay for sex addiction, but they'll pay for symptoms of depression, suicidal ideation, anxiety, other personality disorders, substance abuse that's co-occurring disorder with the sex addiction. So usually we're able to get the insurance company to provide benefits and assist, even if it's on a side door.
Okay.
There are ways to help get funding available.
Candice, are you shocked by what you see and what you hear, and then relieved to see through therapy that there is healing?
Yeah, I think it is shocking, and I've been in the field a very long time, and so I think what is scary to me is just how violent and then how young we're getting, right, with the violence. That's what's shocking. And so, but I also have hope because our approach works. We use a research-based approach to treatment. I know Jeremy does too. And so we do see folks that heal from this. We see families that heal from this. We see generations that are changed because of it. And so that keeps me in this profession, I'll say that. It keeps me passionate about my work.
Do you think it's accessibility now to the internet that makes this, because it's available to anybody all the time, round the clock, anywhere in the globe just about?
Yeah, 90% of the people access it free online. So yeah.
And so really, what advice, I suppose, for anybody who's got a kid? I always remember somebody from the Internet Task Force here telling me, if you give your kid a cell phone, it's a loaded gun.
Exactly. That's what Jeremy was saying, right? So that's, just to repeat what Jeremy was saying, it's like you've got to be an active participant in your child's world. You've got to know what social media sites they're on. You've got to be watching. There are awesome blocks now that you can put on your kids' phones. Kids are real smart, but you can put blocks. You can put multiple blocks, and tracking, and then the open door. And I'm gonna say this: we have to be talking about sex because porn is the new sex ed, and it is violent and it is scary. And so we have to keep that door open and educate our kids on what is real intimacy.
So we have to have that conversation, a tough one. It makes us all squirm, but
Yes.
it's a necessary one, isn't it?
Ongoing.
Right. If you need any kind of advice or help, always consultations are free and you can get the ball rolling. Jeremy Boberg is joining me from Utah Addiction Centers. Their hotline number is 801-766-2233. Also, Candice Christiansen is here. Christiansen, that is here from Namaste Center for Healing. And you work in partnership often, frequently, don't you?
Absolutely.
Great to have Jeremy Boberg from Utah Addiction Centers and Candice Christiansen from Namaste Center for Healing giving us some great advice on if you're dealing within your family relationships with a pornography addiction. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me.
You've been listening to Healing Utah, sponsored by the Utah Addiction Center. Join us again next week at this time for a new conversation about the challenges of addictions on Utah's Talk Radio 105.9 KNRS.